But I'd like to ask each of the three of you what you might do if you were mayor about the empty homes tax. Would you move to scale it back or get rid of it? Would you look at increasing it or changing it in any way? We'll start with Fred because I have an idea.
This is a very simple one for me. We're going to abolish it. And
Okay.
I'll tell you why. I'm going to use Greg Robertson's own numbers. So in 2016, they did a consensus, and the consensus came back with 8,500 approximately homes that were deemed as empty homes. Of those 8,500, approximately 5,000 were given an exemption from the empty homes tax. 2,000 were deemed empty homes because the owners didn't respond to the consensus. So it leaves us with approximately 1,000 empty homes. Now, that doesn't constitute a crisis. Here's what came next. Greg has said that to create the empty homes tax administration was going to cost $7.5 million. $2.5 million a year to administer it. It's nonsense. There's something grossly wrong. We will stop it. We'll end it immediately.
Shauna?
I would triple the empty homes tax.
So just why?
Because I don't think it's enough of a disincentive, and I think if why it's being created is to really challenge those property owners that are leaving their areas empty when we're in the middle of an affordability crisis, and this is a way of gaining revenue to put directly to affordable housing. So it's creating an affordable housing fund. I don't think it's big. I don't think it's high enough. I triple it.
So we've been playing with some numbers of looking at a base point of about a 10% EHT, but we're graduating the system, so we're looking at what is the cost of the property, because the higher you go, you have to acknowledge that people with a lot of money, this tax isn't going to impact them. You want a case in point? Look at the fellows that have been caught driving 200 kilometers per hour on bridges in supercars. And what do they get? Minor fines. That's nothing compared to the value of the vehicle they're driving. It's just the cost of doing business. So we do, like Shauna says, have to have an impact. But what we're also saying is lower down, that's going to have a lot of an impact if we're, say, 5% or so. But as we go higher up, we need to be in that 10, 20, 30% range, especially because a lot of these properties have appreciated over time, 30% a year. If you're not beating that, then there is no disincentive to continue to hold this as a land bank. But, like I said, like a laser focus, we are going to have a graduated credit. If you've been here 10, 20, 30 years, and that's been your resident, where you've lived, worked, paid taxes, we're going to undo what the HT does. Because what we want is we want it to be used by people that have built the community. You want to be a snowbird? You've earned the right. We have no question about that. But you have to build things in a smart way. This is not binary. It's not A or B. You need to choose something that's C.
I just want one come back on this, and this is why it's really important. And it's something that's really important for people to understand. Shauna's going to triple the empty homes tax. So I just left a meeting this morning and with people who are involved in real estate. And let's be very clear about the attacks on property rights, and from the provincial government and from the municipal government. The top of the market, the $4.5 to $8 million homes, the prices have crashed. The very wealthy are able to pick up homes with $1 million to $2 million off the price. The bottom of the market, which is the people that we are also representing, the price of condos has gone up 30% because of everything that you're talking about. This is nonsense. You're talking about an affordability crisis, but the prices of condos are going up 30%, while the people that you want to aim your laser focus at are getting major discounts on the price of their houses. Doesn't make sense.
I can't say that I agree, because you're talking about two different things. I mean, honestly, housing prices are not based on what someone thinks it's worth. It's always based on what the market is going to bear. And at one point, it's always going to be based on the last property sold. So when we think a property is worth that, sure, believe that all you want, but in a fire sale, you're going to find out what it's really worth. The issue is we do not want those properties to sit there underutilized and improperly used. That is the key issue.
There are many issues we've got to work out. Is the issue
let me ask this question.
The affordability issue, the affordability crisis? Is this that we want to kind of level the playing field for everybody? Because if that's the goal of the policies that are being suggested around the table, you can see the facts dictate that that's not happening. You're making people pay more for condos while people with $4.5 and $8 and $10 million homes are paying a lot less.
I think we're confusing something here. Empty property tax is really intended to address the issue that you've got people holding land that are not contributing to the rest of the economy that keeps this city moving. The empty homes tax is really a way of gaining revenue to target a problem around affordability and build purpose-built rental. That's what it's intended for. It's also to try and dissuade people from leaving land empty and leaving buildings empty, and really encourage far greater community. If you go down a number of streets on the west side, you will find an empty house on every single block. That's not working for community. It's not building the kind of city we want. So this is a way of trying to transition to a city that we want.
And I have to agree with Shauna on one point, because when you look at pricing is a supply-demand curve. So if there's an insatiable demand because it's quite easy to come here, park money, and there's no impact to not using it, then what happens is that demand starts to push prices up. When you put an impact, that demand comes down. And that demand translates over into everything else. Because honestly, at the end of the day, you can say, sure, we've got this discount on the big properties, but why are we paying so much on the condos? Well, if you believe that Kool-Aid, eventually you go, well, why am I paying this much for the condo? Because it's got a postage size stamp of land compared to I can get this whole detached home on a massive lot for much less. It will push all the prices down. That is economics.
And the problem, though, as well, is now when people are moving into the speculation on commercial property. And that's presenting a whole new problem in the city of Vancouver that we have to address.
But that's because that's the bypass with FBT. You can buy commercial and you don't have to pay that tax.